we are one of the most intelligent and adaptable trades there are. In fact, I'd have to say that we're probably number one. I think that you have a seed of innate ability, and then that seed grows to something that, with confidence and completion. Here's a young guy, young kid, adventurous, entrepreneurial type, and then he starts his own business right down the street from where he grew up from. He knew everybody. He was the neighborhood guy. That became the first day that I started building for the next generation.
Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. I'm Kelsey Outram with Lift Auto Repair Marketing, and today I have another amazing guest, Greg Buckley with Buckley's Auto Care, based out there in Wilmington, Delaware, and another location in Millsboro, Delaware. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining with us today.
Man, Kelsey, it's my pleasure. Great to be here. I appreciate you making or allowing me to have some time with you. Always interesting, especially with what you're doing with Lyft and everything in the industry. So, thank you.
I absolutely appreciate it. Again, you've been someone I've been wanting to get on the podcast for a while, and now I'm grateful that we've been able to connect and be able to do this. But want to get things started for those that maybe are not already aware of who you are, even though I know a lot of people are already aware of who you are.
I know, it's like,
You're a very great thought voice, I guess, within the kind of
yeah,
social media
people,
space.
it's,
But
it's all smoke and mirrors, man. Like
how'd
I
you get
tell,
started? How'd you get started in the industry?
well, a long, long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, but I was literally 8 years old. It's truth. My dad had started the gas station, service station in '66 here in Wilmington, and I came on board at the age of 8 as a pump jockey. I call myself a petroleum transfer engineer. That was what I would title myself. Didn't help me get any more raises or money from dad, but it felt better, right? So it was more prestigious than a pump jockey. But um, our family was our family, my dad's family, was always involved with businesses or sales. So we were all very comfortable, and I fell in love with what I was doing. It sounds weird, but at 8 years old, I was really enjoying myself. I love talking to people. I love making sales. I love helping. And so, as the business grew and as I grew older, and matured up, I went through all the stages from, being at the island to cashiering, managing, lube tech, uh, mechanic, technician, manager, owner, and went all through the whole path. And so during those times, I got to meet and learn from a lot of people, both my family and what would happen in a family dynamic. Well, our Sunday dinners with my dad's family, and they came. It's an interesting story, actually, where there were seven brothers, not my dad. My dad, they were seven uncles to my dad. So I want to be that clear. When they came over from Poland, um, my great grandparent, had seven boys, and the seven of them all were in different spaces, different businesses, whether it was furniture, liquor, straight up sales, you name it. There was always that dynamic of, back then it was a selling, it was sales, and or hustling, whatever. And you kind of had to do that era. Well, that whole flavor was prominent in our dinners. So with the family get-togethers, our Sunday dinners, which is what happened in Italian families, Latino family, everybody, big families have big dinners.
Mhm.
And we would have everything going on from poker to drinking to politics to business, and intra-family type drama. And it was all what you grew up on. So as my dad had his business and we were growing, all these elements helped shape what I thought was a great life. And I checked off all the boxes and I stuck with it. I mean, literally, it's been my only career outside of whenever my dad would fire me, and then bring me back. It was about 10 times. I circle back. And, because I truly thought that, well, and I still do today, um, it's tough not being part of salt of the earth people. And even though we have our trials and tribulations with our client base and it's always evolving and all the stuff that goes on daily, it still resonates very well with me because it does give me the opportunity to meet incredible people, people not only locally that assisted me in mentoring me, um, and showing me correct paths, but nationwide and industry wide, where going to network events and going to conferences allowed me to rub shoulders and shake hands and share thoughts with others. And that is invaluable when you're trying to learn and grow and understand what business is about, and more importantly, what people are about. You get to see these different elements. And over the decades that I've been involved with it, um, I'm 65 now. I've seen a lot of good, a lot of great, and a lot of poor habits and stuff. And everything came from different times in the industry, just not in technical side, right? But, the other economic factors, embargoes and economic droughts, you'd say, the economic cycles that we all go through um,
Hmm.
every so often. So, uh, better than any university that I ever could have applied for, not going to college, learning on the street, learning from the street, learning real world situations, really helped shape me. And now I'm in a position where we have the two locations. We have a third generation that I'm bringing forward, and I'm learning all over on how to be a good multi-shop owner with, what could be maybe expansion plans. Um, Going from a family business, such as a mom and pop, you would say, small family business, to a family enterprise. Big difference. So, like again, over the decades, learned a lot, and I continue to share. Uh, Occasionally, I get to speak to groups and conferences. Haven't done it in a while. Maybe I'll do it again. I don't know. But anyway, that's me. And if you don't know me, well, I'm pretty transparent. I'm online. You're welcome to, you know, tag me or let me know or knock on my virtual door, whatever the case might be. So yeah. That's it. That's me. So
Yeah, no, again, you have a lot of wisdom. And so, I mean, anyone would be grateful to have you speak at a conference or anything along those lines. But what I'm going to dig into today is
yeah.
definitely kind of picking your brain in terms of obviously like you've been in the industry a long time and thus where there's a lot of change that's taking place. And so first to kind of attack it right away, I guess, what is one of the biggest things you've seen change in the industry, say from when you started till today?
Um, it's really the technical side is always
Mhm.
going to change, right? But there's something that's strange with it all, being so far into it and so long onto it, into the industry. It's one big cycle. I mean, there are countless parallels to when every bit of technology comes through. Imagine when fuel injection came in, right? Everybody freaked out. Oh no, carburetor, we can't learn this, we got to do that. Then there came HEI, right? The first electronic ignition that came out. And then everybody was afraid of that. And then you've got EVs, and you got hybrids, and then you got EVs. And then we've got all of the, propulsion systems that are coming our way. Um, one of the things that, uh, you know, I would say that we're very good at, this industry is great at. We adapt very well.
Mhm.
For those of us that want to really pursue it. Um, I do believe, and I mean this sincerely, a lot of other shops will agree as well, I believe. We are one of the most intelligent and adaptable trades there are. In fact, I'd have to say that we're probably number one, because of the elements of what we have to learn. And that's probably the biggest thing that's changed is that we've had to diversify our our skill sets to incorporate these complicated systems. And we're not afraid of them. We hit it hard and we go after it. And it's a testament to what we are and who we are. Our personality traits is we got to fix it. We have to know, we want to know how to fix it, right?
Mhm.
It's like you look at that 3,000 piece puzzle and you say, I gotta figure that out. I mean, and you're doing that, or you're looking at that, there's a broken wire, but where's that wire chipped at, right? Where's the
Mhm.
nick at? And then you got to go through the schematics. Not many people will tackle those type of situations, right? So if the changes are diversification. We're not just putting valves in and camshafts and cranks, and we're not setting timing, and you're not messing with a carburetor. We're now programming all of that to operate as efficiently as possible, and we have more coming our way. So I look at it as, yes, it's a burden to put ourselves out and afford, our talents. But we do it with pride. We do it with expertise, and we get through it. And again, it's one of the things that makes us so special, so unique. So,
Yeah.
other than
And
that, I think cycles happen all the time, Kelsey. Economic cycles, people doing this, car counts high one month, car counts low the next, or
mhm.
you got to be able to adapt to that and have your business operate accordingly. So,
Yeah, and this adaptability, do you think it's innate? Do you think it's something that's learned and does practice and they have to like train to do it better? Like what
I feel it's innate. I do. I think that you have the personality. It's not that you don't grow. I think that you have a seed of innate ability, and then that seed grows to something that, with confidence and completion, or what would be a better word for it, I guess. Yeah, you complete the task once. That gives you the confidence to move forward, and before you know it, it's like the back of your hand. You know what to do. You know how to handle it. Um, that's where you get success. So um, I think you're from leadership all the way out. I mean, you're born with a certain trait, a certain knack. Um, there's certain people that really do excel at it. They're almost like a savant, and
yes.
those guys are magicians. They can figure out like just a visual of what's going on and understand it very quickly. We all have that ability. It's just how much do we want to let that ability come out, you know?
Mm.
So.
Yep, no, definitely agreed. But as you obviously when you're starting out small and like you are the savant and you are the owner and you are the one having to fix everything.
Mhm.
How do you get to the point now of shifting and being able to like really hand that off? Because I know, I mean, every once in a while as an owner myself, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
someone asks me something, I feel like, oh, I'll just do it. Like I'm here now, I'll just take care of it, rather than, oh, could probably be a great learning experience for the team to be able to grow. So how do you go about really giving that away?
That's a great question because it's very difficult. You would think that it's easy because you just go, well, here, I just want to sign off and I'm going to go off to the sunset.
Yep.
Um, First, there really isn't a sunset. You shouldn't have. I personally believe you shouldn't have a sunset. You're going to be doing something differently. But my experience as being a second generation owner and watching or going back on how I became the owner from my dad, there were things that we didn't do, which again, that comes into the learning situation. My dad was not one to think that he was building a legacy. That wasn't what is was his top of mind.
Mhm.
He thought that he would be in it for a good run for 40, 50 years. Poof, done, gone. I mean, that's what some of the frustration was with me saying, "Wait a minute, I like what I'm doing. I'm going to stick around. You can have your 40 years, but hey, I think I want to take another 40 myself, and then
Mhm.
grow from there." And I saw the opportunities, I enjoyed it. So that experience of being fragile in the transfer of ownership, taking over the name, was was fractured in a sense. It was more transactional. It was like, Dad, hey, I'm I'm taking over. You're getting older. You can't handle it. Here's here's the deal, and we're moving this way. And it's pretty much it had to be that way. 'Cause, he didn't want to leave. And
Mm,
honestly, Kelsey, we lost some valuable time and valuable opportunities because we listened to him, and his, desire to stay cost us a good 5 years in progress.
mm,
You know what I mean? And although we honored him and 40 years, he wanted 40 years at the location he started, because he had a magical run.
yeah.
Boyhood, uh, uh, his thing was, after spending time on in the Firestone network and traveling around Delco, or parts of Pennsylvania just north of where we were. He was born in right up the street from where his first shop was. Well, the Atlantic, here on in Wilmington, and so that was a big thing for him. Here's a young guy, young kid, adventurous, entrepreneurial type. And then he starts his own business right down the street from where he grew up from. He knew
Mm,
everybody. He was the neighborhood guy, and very exciting life, and all that went with it. When it was time to leave, he didn't want to leave. He thought, well, gosh, where, you know, this is a good point. Now, let me segue into this just a little bit here. Um, the biggest thing that we fear is not having another life after our first life, business
mm,
life, that is.
yes.
So my dad didn't really have something to do afterwards. Sure, he could work with us and all that problem, but it wasn't Gene's place.
Yeah.
He couldn't call it Gene's place. So I learned a lot with that. And I wanted to make sure that when the time came, that me moving away was going to be more congenial and understood and planned. And from the time I took over, I knew that I would have, well, I didn't know particular, but I was hoping that I would have children to pass through. And sure enough, we did. I mean, we had, kids. Um, so at the time I started, and I had ownership and everything like that, that became the first day that I started building for the next generation, and knowing that, okay, I'm in for the long game. I'm not here to flip it. I'm not giving myself 10 years and I'm out. I'm my thoughts are way out there, and they still are today. So when it came time to bring the third generation, meaning my son and son-in-law, um, the goal was, well, first off, they're going to be some sort of a partnership here. I don't know how that's going to work. I still don't. We still haven't got to that point. But I have two young men, and other family members as well, two young men who have two different personalities. Okay. And they they work what they have great traits. They're good at what they do, but will they work together? And so I had to take the path when the time came. Now, I mean, prior to that, it was operating the business, grooming it to be profitable, and all that good stuff that went with it. But when they started to come in, this is maybe like 8, 9 years ago, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so getting them to have their personalities mesh, meaning they have space for each other. One is more direct and kind of loud. The personality is a little stronger,
Mhm.
and the other one is a little bit more cerebral. So you got the doer and the thinker. And me, I'm the innovator. So you have to put all this, you got to get this triangle together so that, it works. All
Yes.
sides are equal in a
Yeah.
sense, right? So, and what's the odd one? It's isosceles, right? That's the odd one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'll make sure I got my geometry and all the stuff.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. So, um, so getting all of us together to have a path was important. So it took me like 6 or 7 years to actually have this brew, and it is a process. We had to find the right coaching company that could assist us in moving in this direction, and we found one, and proud to say I work with elite and the coaches there. They are true. I mean, we have a great relationship, and they've helped me get started in one, being a better shop owner, knowing my numbers quite a lot better than what I did. Because
Mhm.
with one location, you get comfortable, and then you get not ignorant of your numbers. You just don't really want to pay attention because you think, I know what's going to
I
happen, right?
know it. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a little lazy. So when two come around, you start finding all the cracks. You know, I wanted to know where these cracks were prior because I hate being unprepared. I don't mind having something, but man, being unprepared to me is it just gets me skitsed out.
Mhm.
So um, all of this was going on, and so when the time came for us to say, all right, we're putting a path forward, we have to have, you do this world, you're in this world, this is your lane, and this is your lane. And both of you have to travel together. And at some point, you got to come to a crossroads and decide, well, what's our next direction? And so we've just recently, I would say within the last year and a half, we've gotten through that. There's rough times where, we do talk about, well, your personality is this way, and you're not good at this, and yeah, you're peeling paint off the
Mm.
walls a couple of times, but it's all
Yep.
for good. And again, going back to my history, my family history, that's what we did at the dinner table, right? When the family got together. Now, we don't get together in that sense all the time. It's not every Sunday we're going over to grandmom's house and sitting around talking shop, playing poker, drinking beer and all that other stuff, right?
Mhm.
I can tell you some stories. My grandfather is the afternoon, he's calling in book, right? He's like, so, he's doing his gambling thing and they love the horses. And my wife's side is just as bad. She comes from the Irish here in
Mm.
Wilmington,
Yep.
and her grandfather was the king. They called him king. He was the Irish mob boss.
Oh
And
my
he took,
goodness.
he had all the gambling on it. And there's a whole book about that one of the cousins wrote about it. So it's really interesting. So I come from this crazy, crazy background, right?
Uh,
But it's who I am. It's what I am. Anyway, so now we're into the third generation, and the second location really made us hone in on how to operate, and we're getting better at it. We're not nowhere near perfect, but we are making strides. And with 85 miles apart, it's a little different. It's you if you forget something, you just can't go back and say, I'm going around the block. You have to plan very well, from inventory to receiving parts or getting parts, relaying tools and equipment, manpower. I mean, there's a lot there. So that's where we're at today. Um, and we've been at it this is our 59th year. Both locations are well over seven figures, or they're at seven figures. No, they're over seven figures,
yep.
mid sevens. That's where we're at for this year, and we have a great growth path. We recently acquired the adjacent property at shop number two in Millsboro,
Oh,
which is,
nice.
yeah, it has a residence on it. So now we have a family, kind of like a beach house, what I say. So we're proud of that, and we're working hard, and that's our goals. And so we finally come to this where all the pieces of that triangle are equal, where everybody
Uh,
knows what goes on. And now we have to work at it, and we have to start bringing in other people to help us reach our goals. Remember, you're not going to do it on your own. You got to learn to lead, and leading means that people have to, they want to join you on this journey. And so, it's getting there.
yeah. And just so the audience is aware, the second location, how long have you run this one for?
This will be our third year.
Third year. So
Yeah,
then and that is amazing and fun. But I'm
yeah.
curious then for the audience also. There's obviously people in your position where they've been running one location for a really long time. They
Hmm.
maybe dabbled with the idea of maybe we'll get another, maybe not. Maybe we'll get
Yeah.
another, maybe not. After all this time of running one, and then you decided to jump into now finally getting that second one. What took you over the edge? What made you be like, hey, you know what? We're gonna do this again.
Um, the opportunity was too good.
Mm.
I'll explain that it was a gift. A gift came my way.
Yeah.
I still say today it was divine intervention. So,
Mm.
I mean, if I had to get faith behind me, I mean, literally, it was as God said, Greg, this is an opportunity. If you're if you don't take this, you're a dumbass. You know, it was that blatant to
Yeah.
me. And so when it came in and I did my due diligence on the property and all that, I came back and reviewed it with my son and son-in-law and team and my wife and everything. I said, this is an opportunity for us. And and when I said yes to that, I can't tell you how easy the deal went through. I mean,
Mm.
it was you started seeing things fall in place that you never I never expected, from negotiations to permits, conditions. I mean, I've been lucky because both of my shops have been walk-ins, and we've made private deals with the previous owners because of the people who were operating the building or renting the building from them had either defaulted or ran the business down, and
Mm.
the landholder had nothing going on. There was no income, no anything going on. So number one was the same way. Um, when it was time to leave our original location, the gas station, the service station, um, the oil companies and the actual oil distributor at the time was really pressing us from not only additional lease, additional rent. We were scheduled to purchase the building, um, and then they declined. They came back with some excuse about there's a covenant underneath, and our lending, which was SBA, doesn't lend on covenant properties. So that deal was scratched, and this is how fate can come your way. Um, we're scrambling because we know we can't really afford the accelerated rent, right? I mean,
Mm.
it jumped up to $8,000 or $9,000 for a quarter acre patch of ground in a building.
Yeah.
So it was really exceptional. And the volume of fuel was decreasing because of competition. So, and we didn't want to sell gasoline. So here we are, we're kind of getting ready to be homeless as a business. And we thought, well, what do we got to do to break the lease? Well, we went through our records and we came to find out that we didn't have a lease. When in 95, we had taken over a lease.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that had expired a year and a half earlier. And right, the oil company, the distributor never came to us and said we need another contract. We never
Mm.
signed one. We pulled that out and we started doing a happy dance because it freed us from what would have been a pretty crazy expense. We know that.
Uh-huh.
So I talked to my attorney, and the attorney goes, write anybody a letter that has some kind of building that you can rent, lease, move into. And our first one was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Sheldon, who had what is now our location. There was nobody there. He had had a tenant that was 9 months behind on rent. So basically, they were shutting him down, and
Yeah.
the place was a wreck. It was a transmission shop, and it was a mess. I mean, literally a mess. Um, so when I wrote the letter to Mr. Sheldon, he called me and he goes, "Where the hell you been? I've been waiting for you to call me." You know, because he's had this
Yeah.
building since '99. He said this is 2005, 2006. Yeah, and he said I was waiting for you since '99. And I go, "What do you mean?" So we become friends.
Uh-huh.
Don and his wife Cheryl, we become friends, and it was a funny exchange. He says, "Walk in." He goes, "Greg, all the lifts are yours. Anything that you find in there is yours. I don't care what it is." So we got out of the original location and we walked in. Day one, I had a
God, that's
laptop
crazy.
and we started doing business. I
Uh-huh.
mean, literally, first, It was crazy. And
That
from
is crazy.
there, right, from there we just started, rehabbing the building and all that. And then we
Yeah.
signed an agreement to purchase the location, which we're finalizing by the end of this year. Um, and that's how we started with the moving to our latest location here in Wilmington, and that's how we acquired it. And it was a handshake, private deal, no craziness.
Yep.
Um, and then in number two in Millsboro, I hear I'm in number one, right? And comfortable, not even looking. And,
Yep.
buddy of mine who lives down in Millsboro, right? He's a good friend and he's a realtor. And he told me, he goes, hey, you know, I talked to you about these guys here in Millsboro up the street, and they're slamming. They can't get their cars all around and all that. I go, yeah, yeah, yeah. He goes, well, they want to shut it down. They want to move. They want to sell it. And I go, really? He goes, you interested? And I go, I don't know. I got this. I'm comfortable, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I'll tell you what. I said, let me do some homework. So, I did my homework and I looked at the area and I said, holy cow. I go, this is exceptional. I'm like, all right, well, what's the deal? So they gave me the number and I looked at it and I thought, all right, well, what are they doing per year? 'Cause they had they had a total of it was like 800,000 for property, building, equipment, you name it.
Yep.
And so I went there and I talked to them and I got to know him. I actually went to work for him. I said, I got to see this for myself. I got to see what action you guys are drawing. I go, what are your numbers? Well, they couldn't give me any numbers because it was all cash and it was,
Pen and paper and
yeah, let's put it this way. There were no receipts. There were no vendor receipts and there were no customer receipts.
oh my
I
goodness.
mean, everything was torn up. I witnessed it myself. And I go, okay. So I went up to the kid, one of the son, or I was just following son team with the son. I go, all right, look, man, this isn't my first rodeo. I go, how much you taking from the business? Oh, well, and he starts hemming and hawing. And I'm like,
Um,
give me the total. I go, I have to know whether this nut that your dad is asking me, if I can fill it, right? I said, that's all I want to do. I don't care what you did with your money. I could care less, So just, well, it's about maybe 250, 300. And I go, well, what do you think you did per year? Oh, maybe four and a half. And I said, well, all right, you're taking three, and that leaves 150. What about your dad? Well, he'll take some himself. So you've got nothing left. I go,
mm,
there's not a bank that's going to float this deal. I go, there's nothing here. You got to find a sugar daddy to come in with 800 grand cash if that's what you want. So I'm not your guy. So I said, I came back, I countered. I go, okay, here you go. Look, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm not going to argue. All right. But you're going to break it down in three ways. I said, I'll give you X amount for the real estate. I'll pay your tools and I'll give you X for your goodwill. Right. And I go, you ain't got another shot really. So he turned around and I told him, you're going to hold the mortgages. And he said, okay, we'll get a deal. I go, all right. So if it's that kind of easy, but we walked in the settlement and, he didn't even have the money. Well, first off, his equipment was aged out. So he couldn't replenish it because he didn't have the money he didn't invest back in the business. And his son was stealing from him and it was a bad scene.
mm,
The father couldn't stop it because he didn't want to lose his son, right?
mm,
So they continued to drain the business of cash and ran it poorly. And they weren't technically really into the dad was good, the son was terrible. So it was bad on their end. They really sacrificed their entire investment in that property, and when it came time to sell, they had no ability nor any funds to even afford their own attorney or their own accountant.
I see.
So they asked me, "Hey, can we just use your
Yours.
attorney and
Yep.
whatever numbers you come up with?" And yeah, sure. And then I said, "I want you out of here as soon as possible. Here's your money, here's your guarantees, and you can go off into your sunset, right?" So that's how we acquired number two. Unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, that owner passed away. He couldn't even enjoy his life's work, and he was 65 or 66 at the time.
Mm,
Um, and now I'm dealing with his wife. The son moved away, has nothing to do with the business, had nothing to do, and the wife is now the character. Well, she's holding the mortgage until 29, I think, and then or sooner. But yeah, that's uh when that opportunity came around, Kelsey, like I said, it was a gift because that property is in the heart. It's in the middle of this incredible housing boom with
mm.
all of these new people coming in. So we're really fortunate, and it's given us the opportunity to be more confident and understand what we can do. And once we get our processes down a lot better, we become more, um, we learn more about what it takes to run two. As they say, three can be easier, four can be easier. Whatever we are, um, whatever comes our way, and that it's comfortable for us to move to. You know, I'm not here to build out 11, 12, 14, 15, 20 locations and bundle them up and sell them to venture, right?
Uh-huh.
That's not my style. Uh,
Yep.
if I'm comfortable at two, fine. If I'm comfortable at three, I would like to see the family diversify a little bit. Maybe we get into something different that still focuses on some of our skill sets, or we have a knack for. You know what I mean? There's other opportunities besides automotive.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And I have more questions on the second
Go ahead,
location
go ahead.
and the
I
difference.
mean,
But
I
first and
told you I
foremost,
got no timelines. As long as
yeah,
you're
and
okay
but
for us
but
to
first
hang
and
on,
foremost, I
you know.
wanted to address the fact that yes, I'm obviously like some things fell into your lap, but I think it's due to how well you are with people and like and kind of the ability that you have to connect with people. You mentioned having like friends multiple times here throughout these stories,
Yeah,
and like you have a lot of friends, which I love.
I
But
do.
how I guess how have you been able to foster these relationships so well that people are like, you know what, I need to reach out to Greg for this thing, and then thus where these things kind of fall into your lap, so to say.
People will ask me that a lot, and yes, we have. I mean, I am very fortunate that my buddy and I, Mickey, my smash brother, you know, we grew up in communities that were so tight, and
Mm,
I mean, honestly, we would have a Friday night get together in a local park that I I would say that we had 100 or 125 people, kids, that would just, you know, uh, be present, that would just come out to just to socialize. And nothing serious would happen. I mean, it wasn't like bad stuff, but we would get together. And so we were always with friends, and we always had neighborhoods, and we all played sports together, and we all hung out, and we all got to know. I mean, we're we're a band of brothers that includes sisters as well, but we're a band of brothers. So all of these experiences, and you get to meet these people, you do become friends because, well, you're open to that, and you share things with them, and that creates the bond. Um, I could tell you stories about how happenstance occurs, uh, just like poof, all of a sudden, this deal with number two was similar. Um, but being open, and you can get, what's the word? Uh, I'm trying to think of the word what would describe being open to the universe, and without sounding kind of like, goofy, but
yeah.
there's that element where, if you ask, you receive. Uh, and sort of like your friends start to network out, and then you start to allow yourself to network as well. You come out of your shell. And again, for me, I've been in the public eye since I've been 8, and it's just normal for me to shake a hand, to smile, to say hi. I feel sorry for the younger generation who don't get to experience that. They emote through the phone, through to a device, and that's like a
Mm.
third party. You hire out somebody to say hello to you, to the other
Mm.
person, and that takes away completely what emotional ties that you can gain by, a look in the eye. And one of the things that I find striking is each of in your hand, right? There are 17,000 receptors,
Hmm.
right? And they all offer a signal back up to your brain. And then that starts the process of profiling. You know exactly with a handshake or a pat on the back. What do you feel when you have a pat on the back from someone that could comfort you? It could feel weird, yeah, but most of the time, if a friend or acquaintance says, yeah, okay, cool. If they shake your hand, if you're just meeting for somebody for the first time, handshake and an eye contact can tell you pretty much, they can give you a sense of what the person might be like. I'm not saying it's 100%, but you feel it, and they will feel the same for you. So when they say a handshake is important, it is. Doesn't, I mean, it's not where you got to grip them to death and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But there are things. Remember, 17,000 meet 17,000. That's 34,000 receptors
Mhm.
that are transferring to two individuals. You come up and those signals start to mean something. And again, by being in the public, I'm able to determine pretty rapidly, where am I going with this guy? Where am I doing? But friends, being open to making acquaintances, smiling, being personable, that does help. There's no question. And
Yeah.
so I think over the decades in my lifetime, my friends have respected me, because I have been in business, and the sacrifices that I made because of my direction, right? I wasn't the one to go to college, so all the frat parties and everything I would occasionally be part of, but I was working. Um, I was driving first. I had my cars first. Um, what else? Like I said, I wasn't at college, um, and I was more mature than most of them. So. So that was my son. Sorry for the interruption.
No, no,
So,
you're good.
so it gave me like um, well, I guess, put me in a leadership thing. I don't know.
Mm.
I wasn't afraid to challenge myself. I think that's one of the big things they saw in me. When anything came up, I was first to say, okay, I'll do that. Whether it was sports. I was all state. I played baseball, football. I tried out for the Flyers hockey junior team. Um, at 18, I jumped into this armed service, with the Air Force. Um, Went around the world, traveled. So they look at me as somebody who's not afraid to expand, and with that comes a wealth of knowledge. So they will rely on me to say, "Hey, uh, what do you think about this? Or what do you do that?"
Yeah.
I,
So these little things, obviously, these little things of being just like a little bit more personable, a little bit more open. Is that something you've ingrained within your shop culture? Is like, hey, like
I do.
this is what I expect in the advisors
Yeah.
and the technicians and everyone, or are there like even SOPs of like this is how you should handle it, or like is it just more of a you engage with them, you help them
You know,
understand?
with all the pluses that my life has afforded me, one of the things that I'm not great at is the static type processes of SOPs and
Mm.
rules. I follow them, I know them, I want them, but at the same time, I know the human element can bend to those rules at any moment. And what do you do? Um, you could get a slap on the wrist, or you can get fired for a little bit of a bend of that rule. Let's, say, hey, or do you look at the circumstances of the person and go, well, all right, I can rationalize out of it. Some disciplinarians will say, you know what, you broke the rule, you're out, right? And in some instances, it might be warranted, no doubt. But in my situation, um, hard and fast rules are kind of like not my strength. This because of the way I was brought up. I understand the human dynamic, and when you place rules and regulations on people, sometimes their performance goes downhill because they're afraid to make a move.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
you can stymie their creativity because there's a rule over their head that says, wait a minute, I can't touch that. I can't go to that third rail because I know what'll happen. So, yeah.
I like that a lot. And so now circle back to the second location. So obviously you were running the one location for a good long while. Things are probably
Mhm.
running very smoothly, but now you have the second one. What's
Mhm.
the biggest thing that you learned running the second one that was different from the first?
I need to be sharper with processes.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, there are things that running two locations, it's from the business side, coordinating your your accountant, grabbing the books, making sure those things are correct. And we're still in the process of getting that together because we started as two separate entities, and then right in the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter of last year, we started trimming into one company with um, two businesses. Meaning, so you've had that umbrella
yep.
with two points under it now instead of two separate entities. That was to cut costs, um, and that's a big thing. Is you look to shave where the costs are. Number one, two, um, you have to put the team and your culture and everything together. One can't be separate. They um, equal but separate. I think that's, in fact, that's why I just was, we were just having a little bit of a difficulty with one and two, with the way that number two operates versus number one.
Mm,
And the personnel in number two, technically wise, they are a very strong team. They are really true and true master technicians. In fact, I have one of 2,400 GM world class master technicians with me.
wow.
So there's a different way to handle them. So, in number one, we have our ASC certs and all that stuff, and it's a very smooth operating unit. But the difference is that each location, and maybe those that have a lot more multiples, um, I'm not talking like a franchise model like Christian Brothers or some of the others,
Yep.
but each location, each store has a different personality. And I truly believe that I wouldn't care if it was a Christian Brothers type operation. There's an underlying current that, sure, your processes fall onto, but each store has its own personality due to the people that you have running it or
Yeah.
owners. All right. There aren't two Greg Buckleys. There aren't two, name them, other owners. There's no two of me. There's no two of others. So expecting each location to run like a McDonald's, I think is it's a heady task, and I don't know how successful a lot of people are. And I feel that fighting that personality in each is detrimental to the growth of the company. So I tend to say, all right, number one, you have your actions, you have your ways of doing things. You operate within the confines of the building that you're in, because we don't have templated buildings. It's not like number one looks like number two, and vice versa. So
Mhm.
you have the elements that are going to make you different, right? And it's your environment, so you
Yep.
have to adapt to the environment. Um, so to expect things to be equal throughout is, I think it's a falsehood.
Yes. No, I think I agree as well.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you bought the second location, like they were husband and son, they're the only people, you had to kick them out. So then
Mhm.
how did you go about filling it? Like obviously you need people to go there. You don't live there. And so
Yeah, good question. I mean, the thing was is that we were in negotiations all the way up. I opened July 5th. We
okay.
were in negotiations all the way up to July 3rd, right before the holiday, because the son was just being stupid, and trying to act bigger than what he was. So we had to wait to the final moment. And in the meantime, prior to a month or 3 weeks earlier, I had negotiated with two gentlemen who were willing to come to work with me. So
Mhm.
I had talent lined up,
Nice.
but when we were getting to the final moment, I thought, well, oh, man, this might not go through. Because I was ready to walk away. I mean, I was going to say, you know what, screw it. You guys are really being dumb here. Anyway, we got through all that, and then finally they came on board. Um, they had no talent with them, so I didn't have to worry about that. I was coming in by myself, and worst case scenario was if I didn't find anybody, I was willing and more than able to at least do enough business on my own talents. Yeah, would I go back into Bay and I'd have to work and I'd have to do the brakes and the oil changes and the service and whatever I could do, but I would afford this opportunity. And again, I didn't have a fear. I didn't have a fear of that.
Like that a lot. How did
Yeah.
you go about growing the customer base? Because I assume, I mean, it sounds like probably the historical customer base maybe wasn't in love with the current situation, and you probably brought a new rejuvenation there. So how did you go
Sure.
about
Uh,
marketing it, I guess, in a sense?
well, it was really, I had to wait. I knew that my pricing and all that were going to eliminate a lot of the old baggage and the old
Hmm.
client base, which is a natural situation. Um, the biggest, the biggest thing to get me off the ground, I opened on time. I opened
Hmm.
at 7:30. These two guys were notorious. Well, maybe 7:30. Well, maybe 9:30. Well, you know what? I can't get there till noon. And so there was no dependability. So
Yep.
what we brought were the basics of an operation, consistency, answering the phones, opening when you say you're going to open, convenient payment methods. These are just raw basics.
Hmm.
And that allowed us to really overcome any uh, any of their numbers within the first year. Just simplicity. And then we were budgeting out a postcard campaign because the demographics were all retirees. They may not be online, they may not be texting, whatever. So the postcard was the most direct way. And of course, having good text to fix cars properly is a big help too. And we have a personality. So all of that came to get us over that first year hump, and now we're year three. We're still raising the bar in the area, and we've got some I tell you, I am so proud of the techs down there. They are super good technicians. So
That's amazing. How many bays, how many lifts are at each location? Just so at least people can get.
five at each.
Okay.
Five each. Yeah, yeah. A little different layout. Like I said, if you look at the building in Millsboro, it looks like a house. It was an old equipment barn that was built out to look like a house, and people get confused. And honestly, we've had some difficulty um, acquiring talent because people they would ride by or pull in and go, "You can't be doing what you're talking about," or "You look like you're a rinky-dink mom and pop." I go,
Yeah.
"Well." When they walk in and then I start to describe, the numbers and start describing what salary that I could afford them, they go, "Oh, really? Okay." And then they're like a whole different world opens up to them. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. I go, yeah. I go, why do you look at the book covers and you don't want to learn about the book? You know what I mean?
Mm.
So yeah, it's
Look at
fun.
these great wisdom nuggets you just keep throwing out. I love it.
I'm just trying to tell you what's real, man. That's all.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. And so obviously like there's a lot of things that have changed. I know we could talk about a lot of different topics, but I wanted to hit on one last sort of topic in terms of the difference in marketing, say in the beginning when you're early onset, maybe when you originally took over yourself versus what marketing is like now. Like has there been a big shift? Or you see like no, like I mean, some of the bones are still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, they're you know, great question because a lot of times, in fact, in some of my groups that I'm in, um, offline, we talk about, well, what works, what doesn't work. And back in the day, you had the vehicle required frequency.
Mm,
Okay. It it pretty much was built in that you're going to be in the shop every 3 months. Right? Cars would not hold up, let's say every 15,000 miles, every 12,000 miles. So that was their thing. And then you were bringing them in on every 3,000. So you had a postcard system that was very simple, right? You come in on day one, and then day 30, you're coming back again, right?
mm,
Or say yeah, it's day 30, every 3,000 miles. 3,000 miles every 2 or 3 months, whatever it was. Um, but you would come back and you would have a board, and you come in on the first, that card goes back out on the 30th of the month. You would send that reminder. And of course, with fuel islands, you had an instant marketing machine because they were visiting you every other day for fuel.
Yep.
So if there was something to be seen as an attendant, I would witness that. I would say, hey, Miss Smith, the wipers are bad today. Or, hey, do you know you got a nail in the tire? Or, hey, can I check that oil for you?
Mm.
So you had island sales. So formal postcards and marketing in that era was infrequent. Now,
Yep.
some guys may have done well with it, or they put a blurb in the local Sunday parish newsletter, or they put signs on the street and they would say, hey, gasoline sale, and all that other stuff. Um, and I speak from that direction because at the time, when I grew up, we were service station. I didn't start a true mechanical until 2006 when I didn't have fuel islands to deal with.
Hmm.
So, my background is looking at fuel lines as being the driver for sales. Now, coming into a true mechanical shop, um, word of mouth is still, I still feel word of mouth is where it all emanates from, right?
Yep.
So you can have your Googles, you can have all of your online presence, you can have your Facebook and all that other thing. But I will tell you that the first step is when someone is asking about you is that they're asking a friend first or a relative. And then from there, that journey goes to online, your reputation. Um, Google calls it the path to, oh gosh, what was it? Path to purchase.
Mm. Yep.
The path to purchase. And I remember visibly when I was teaching marketing at ATI, I would put that front and center because it showed a young lady looking up to the stars, but all around her were these elements of where she's looking at in order to determine where she wants to purchase, what she wants to spend her money. And it's still true today, but word of mouth was always the dominant circle, right? It was the biggest one
Yep.
because that's where it starts. So a lot of us get, they promote and they say that, hey, look, Google this and that and that. All right, cool, I get it, but it's not. You can't prove it's not the first place. Everybody thinks that they're gonna ask their neighbor, their friend, somebody, uh, who's the best or who do I want to use. So that's I think I don't say we've gotten away from common sense and sort of marketing. And your best marketing is fix the car right the first time,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, and have a
Absolutely.
smile at the end of the transaction. Again, it goes back to the personality. You know, you want to make sure that they are comfortable dealing with you, that you offer a smile before you start working and after you start working, and make sure they're happy with their purchase. We can take a lot away from retail in how we present. We go from a relationship business into a transactional business, and we don't want the transactional to overtake the relation. You got to have that relationship. So that starts with, again, the handshake, the receptors, smile, personality, everything. So your counter has to be on point, 100%.
Yep. And absolutely the little things. Because again, I
Yeah.
mean, regardless of how many marketing dollar budget you have, and you're like, I can get it all. If those little things at the store aren't happening, it doesn't matter. Like again, it's at the end of the
Yeah.
day, people you're gonna get a horrible word of mouth, a reputation, and then everyone's gonna stop coming. And so,
Right, right. And I think that one of the biggest things that I see is maybe a trend. I don't know. I don't partake in it, but when a lot of people will say that, the alternate sources of video, the TikToks, the Reels, and everything, I believe that falls in line with more entertainment than it does producing a quality version of your business,
mm,
personally speaking. We all can, I mean, I don't do TikTok. I don't really do Reels a lot. I might do some shorts, but that's about it. But I try to make them relative and offer a good bit of information within that 1 minute,
mm,
or 30 seconds, whatever I can whatever I think of. But I'm not putting memes out. I'm not trying to put in a comic type situation or something that's going to, I don't know. What can I say? It's got to be relative to the quality of my business. My
Yeah.
brand is important, and whether or not I want to showcase the qualities of my brand, or maybe a lighthearted moment with a team member, but nothing really wacky. And I think
Yeah.
that we have to decide what's entertainment and what's good information. So,
Yep. No, 100% agree. Well, Greg, I appreciate everything that you shared with us today.
glad to be able to do it.
It's an absolute wealth of knowledge. I always appreciate talking with you. You're very easy to speak with, and so that's what makes things like
Good.
this so fun to do.
Sure.
But as a final parting gift for everyone, I always ask, like, what is a great book that you believe every shop owner should read?
It's an odd one. It's called Thou Shalt Prosper. Yeah, Thou Shalt Prosper, and it's by a rabbi, Dan. Rabbi Dan, I want to say Jurgen. I could be wrong on that. I apologize if I didn't get the author. But anyway, the book is, I listen to audio, so I'll tell you that the audio version is about 17 or 18 hours long.
Oh,
But it
wow.
talks, yeah, but it talks about the tenets of what business is about, what an owner is about, what an owner should be doing, and what an employee should be doing. There's a respect level that each should have for one another, and it's not really religious in any way, but it talks about the basis of what a good business should be about, meaning that, the owner having respect for the employee in terms of providing, you know, uh, the necessary needs to make the employee comfortable and prosper enough to want to participate, to continue to work. I'm getting a little, it's a lot there. The book's a lot, but one of the really great books. And I'll tell you something else that I'm recently diving into. It's the industrial age of America. There's a lot of history that takes you from what entrepreneurs back then to build America out into the industrial side instead of the agricultural side. Because there, back in history, there was, the decision, do we go agriculture,
Mhm.
as I believe Jefferson wanted to do, to industrial, and industrial won out. And so
Yep.
from that point on, these industrial, they call robber barons or whatever, they were really, really rough. And so it was a rough period in growth, but there was a lot of lessons. And so I'm going back and learning all these characters. The first one's Mellon, um, and then there's Carnegie, and there's Ford, there's Edison, and Westinghouse, and all these names that we may have known prior. Their history, their paths are books to read as well. So I'll give you more than just one, but the big one is the one by the rabbi. Very insightful, and I'll tell you, it really sets the foundation based on, I would say religious tenets, but um, it's very, very good and it's accurate. So, you know, my recommendation.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, Greg. That's going to be a great recommendation.
Sure.
For those that maybe want to reach out to you personally and maybe get some advice or tips or share more
Don't call
stories with
me.
you.
Don't talk to
Yeah.
me.
What's
I'm
going to be the
not
best way to reach out
personable.
to you?
Hey, they can see me online anywhere. I hope that, as I would invite you, I want everybody to pay attention to Shop Soup. We're going to be moving forward with that. I'm working with the team from Auto Service Leader, Bryce Evans, and everybody. We want to have fun on the show. It's not your normal, it will not be your normal podcast. We're going to talk about things that expand our knowledge base. At the same time, we're going to have some fun. So we want to get personal. You can reach out to me socially. Is fine. And if I really like you, then I'll give you my phone number.
Oh, watch out.
So,
I
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
love that. Well,
that's
Greg, thank
good.
you so much again for being
Thank
on with
you.
us today. For those that are still watching, if you haven't already liked or subscribed, please do so. That really helps us. But again, I'm Kelsey with Lift Auto Repair Marketing. We'll talk to you guys again next time. Bye.